BRB, LOL, SMH, TTYL. That may have just sounded like a bunch of random letters and nonsense, and I felt pretty ridiculous saying it, but I guarantee that everyone here knew exactly what I meant. Those were abbreviations used in texting, the most common form of communication today, according to Forbes magazine. As someone who is considered a millennial who grew up with smartphones, I am an avid texter. Texting has been the main form of communication for most of my communicating life. I've become well acquainted with the benefits as well as the pitfalls of texting. I can guarantee that everyone here is also a texter, as recent statistics from textrequest.com state that 22 billion texts are sent worldwide every day. 8.5 billion of those are just from the US. My little brother sends a shocking 5,000 a month all by himself. Texting may seem harmless as it is such a common form of communication, but it can be dangerous, especially when it comes to relationships. Everyone has relationships, whether they're friendships, family, or romantic relationships. And I can guarantee that everyone wants to keep those relationships healthy and the people in them happy. I know that I do. The purpose of this speech is to inform you and to warn you about the dangers of texting, especially in regards to communication and relationships. The dangers can be seen growing throughout time, from the beginning of texting and the smartphone to modern day, and a hypothetical, frightening future can be seen for a world with texting. Texting is a very modern and recent phenomenon, as the first text was sent in 1992 and the smartphone was released in 2007, a mere 10 years ago. The first text was sent on December 3rd, 1992, by Neil Papworth. As EDN Network says, Papworth, a test engineer for SEMA, used his computer to text his friend Merry Christmas. The original intent for texting was to be used within businesses to send quick, fast messages when calling was inconvenient. However, text messaging soon spread to all other aspects of life, and more people became involved with the new phenomenon. In 2000, only 8 years after the first text was sent, Americans sent an average of 420 texts that year. But in 2013, just 13 years later, an article from Business Insider reported that 46,000 texts were sent. This is almost 58 times that. The statistics from today are almost 8,000 times that. In 2007, the first iPhone was released, and I believe that this has fueled the texting phenomenon. Smartphones make texting even more convenient and easy, and so they have pushed people away from phone calls and face-to-face conversations and towards texting. The shift towards texting has caused many important aspects of communication to be lost, and has caused people to be more into their phones than into each other. This dramatic, dangerous-sounding statement is proved through modern statistics and studies. An article written by a group of psychologists called Nonverbal Communication, written in 2015, teaches the importance of nonverbal cues. Nonverbal cues, such as smiling, nodding your head, or the tone of your voice, help display the meaning of verbal cues, which are the words being said. They can substitute for a verbal cue, as sometimes a person's eyes can say more than what they're actually saying. They can also contradict what a person is saying, which helps detect sarcasm, and this is not easily done over texting. In texting, emotions are lost, and there is a lack of these nonverbal cues, which makes it so easy to misinterpret the message. For example, my dad always replies to my mom with okay, and my mom gets so upset and thinks this means that my dad is mad at her, when in actual reality he means okay. The general idea of texting can also be misinterpreted, as a recent study from BYU shows. This study surveyed men and women between the ages of 18 and 25, and showed that while women thought frequent texting meant that the relationship was healthy and stable, men thought the opposite. When my husband and I started dating, I tried to text him all the time because that's what I did in my previous relationships. I thought that constant communication and texting was what made a relationship healthy, but he thought that conversations should be had over the phone or in face-to-face. This made me upset at first, and I got all riled up. It's embarrassing to admit now, but I thought that we should be constantly communicating, and he thought that we should save important conversations for face-to-face communication. Thankfully, he was able to look past my embarrassing meltdown and now we only use texting for things like figuring out plans, and I strongly believe that this has helped our relationship. Texting can desensitize and disconnect couples from each other. Sherry Turkle, a psychologist, in her recent TED Talk, Connected But Alone, talks about how technology allows us to keep each other at a distance, both physically and emotionally. We connect to the internet, but we don't connect to our loved ones. My favorite quote from Turkle's talk was, quote, "We expect more from our technology and less from each other," end quote. Texting is pushing us away from our loved ones. If texting continues to increase at the rate it has in the last 25 years, I believe that it will continue to separate people from each other. However, this is not a definite future. We do not have to be, as Turkle says, quote, "connected but alone," end quote. We can set device-free zones in our homes where phones are not allowed and face-to-face communication is encouraged, such as the dinner table and the bedroom. We can focus on meaningful conversations with each other and use texting for what it was originally intended. Texting no longer needs to harm our relationships. It seems frightening and overwhelming that such a small device and such an everyday act can have so much control over our lives and our relationships, but it no longer needs to be this way. By bringing back meaningful conversations and using our phones sparingly, we can ensure that nonverbal cues are used in our communication and we are not desensitized to each other. Texting does not determine our future. We determine the future of texting.